I came home after a 22-hour shift to find my things in trash bags on the porch. My wife text said, "We're decluttering for mental clarity." Her mother added, "And you still owe us $15,000 from the wedding." I slept in the car that night. The next morning, I closed every joint account, froze the house title, and drove off in the car I bought. At 11:42 a.m., her brother texted, "Did you just empty the family trust?" I didn't reply. I got home at 6:13 a.m., brain on autopilot after a 22-hour shift in the ER. We were short 3 nurses, and a surgeon had walked out mid-operation because his wife was threatening to leave him. One guy came in with half his arm in a cooler. Another coded on the table twice before we stabilized him. I hadn't eaten anything besides a protein bar since yesterday morning, and the thought of a hot shower, a bowl of leftover pasta, and crashing on the couch was the only thing pulling me through that last hour. So when I pulled into our driveway and saw my stuff on the porch in black trash bags, it took me a full 30 seconds to process what I was looking at. Trash bags. 7 of them. Lined up like someone was staging a garage sale for garbage. My TV was poking out of one of them, wrapped in a towel. My college hoodie. My laptop bag. Even the ceramic mug I kept by my bedside was there, cracked like someone had dropped it on purpose. I thought we'd been robbed. I ran to the door, half out of my mind. But the door wasn't broken. It was unlocked. Inside, Courtney's mother was sitting at the dining table in her housecoat, drinking coffee like it was just another Tuesday. She didn't flinch when she saw me. She just said flatly, like it was a fact, "You still owe us $15,000 from the wedding." Then she went back to scrolling on her iPad. I didn't ask where Courtney was. I didn't say a word. I walked back outside, sat in my car, and locked the doors. My hands were shaking, but not from exhaustion anymore. This wasn't some dramatic fight. There had been no build-up. No argument. Just that text from Courtney at 5:48 a.m., while I was treating a man with stab wounds. "We're decluttering for mental clarity." That was it. After 3 years of marriage. After I helped pay off her grad school loans and took double shifts so she could find herself for a year. After I ignored every snide comment from her parents about my job not being good enough, even though I was paying most of the bills. I slept in the car that night in the hospital parking lot. Not because I didn't have anywhere to go. Because I needed to sit with it. I needed to feel it all. At 9:01 the next morning, I walked into the bank and closed every joint account we had. Froze the house title so it couldn't be sold or refinanced without my signature. Froze the credit cards. Canceled the ones that were in my name. Moved what was mine into a separate account. Courtney never had a job for more than 6 months. Her parents covered the wedding and made a huge point of saying it was their gift to us. Apparently now, they had a different interpretation. A gift with strings. At 10:34 a.m., I emailed our lawyer and told him to start the divorce process. Irreconcilable differences didn't even begin to cover it. At 11:42 a.m., her brother texted, "Did you just empty the family trust?" I didn't reply. Because I didn't need to. He'd figure it out soon enough. And that was only the beginning. They wanted mental clarity? They were about to get it. Next was step 2. Revenge. And I wasn't rushing it. I wanted it to sink in, one move at a time. I spent the next 2 nights at a cheap roadside motel 2 counties over. No name brand. Just a flickering sign that said vacancy, and a front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. I paid cash, pulled the curtains, and let the silence do its work. That room had peeling wallpaper and smelled faintly like mildew, but it was mine. No passive-aggressive sticky notes on the fridge, no meditation music playing on a loop in the living room, no cold stares over quinoa dinners. Just quiet. I checked my phone once each day. Just to see what was coming in. First, 2 missed calls from Courtney. Then 6. Then a voicemail. Then nothing. Then more texts. Most of them were one-liners, weirdly calm like she was still trying to keep the upper hand. "Can we talk? Let's be civil. I didn't expect you to be so reactive." Then it shifted. "I need access to the joint account. I have bills coming out." Followed by, "You're being spiteful. You're sabotaging us." The last one before I shut the phone off again was, "My mom says you need to grow up and face your responsibilities." That actually made me laugh. I'd been responsible every damn day since I met Courtney. I was the one covering rent while she worked on her brand. I was the one putting in back-to-back shifts while she took spontaneous weekend trips with her friends. I didn't even flinch when her dad brought up the family trust over dinner one night, talking like I should feel lucky they even invited me into their world. They all treated me like a charity case with a stethoscope. But the moment I stopped being useful, they dragged out the trash bags. By day 3, I filed for divorce. Irreconcilable differences, although that phrase doesn't even touch the reality. I also filed a formal notice to freeze the house title, blocked Courtney from refinancing or selling anything, and revoked her power of attorney that I never should have signed in the first place. She never wanted partnership, just control. Later that day, I got the trust text from her brother. "Did you just empty the family trust?" No. I didn't. But I had moved the funds from our joint investment account, the one they never contributed to but always talked about like it was theirs. I had documentation. Statements. Every dollar was from my paychecks, deposited after taxes. If they wanted to fight that in court, they'd be paying lawyers more than they thought I owed them. I went to my parents' place that night. First time I'd been back in years without Courtney. They always played nice around her, but I could tell they never fully bought into her act. The moment I walked in with a duffel bag, my mom just said, "Finally." My dad was already setting up the guest room. Courtney showed up the next day. She didn't knock at first. Just stood outside until my mom noticed someone pacing on the porch. I saw her from the hallway, barefoot, messy bun, in one of those oversized sweatshirts she only wore when she wanted people to think she was fragile. She tried to act normal at first. Said she was just here to talk. Then she saw the look on my dad's face and changed tactics. Got emotional. Said she made a mistake. That it wasn't supposed to happen this way. That she was overwhelmed, and her mom had pushed her, and maybe we just needed time apart. Said we didn't need to involve lawyers yet. Then, like she forgot where she was, she said if I didn't come back, she'd tell her parents I stole her mom's jewelry. I stepped out onto the porch. I told her she might want to think twice about that. Because the pawn shop slip with her signature on it? That was in my glove box. Along with the surveillance footage of her handing over the necklace. She'd pawned it 2 months ago, told me it was for a secret birthday gift she never gave me. She stared at me for a long time, like she was trying to figure out if I was bluffing. My mom stepped in, told her it was time to leave. My dad said the same. No yelling. No drama. Just final. Courtney turned and walked down the driveway without another word. 2 hours later, her father called. Said they wanted to meet in person. He said there were things that needed to be corrected. I told him I wasn't interested in corrections. I was interested in endings. Still, he said they were coming. And I said fine. Let them come. They pulled into the driveway like it was still theirs. Courtney's father stepped out first in his usual navy golf jacket, like he just came from the club. Her mother followed behind, clutching a leather folder like it contained the 10 Commandments. Courtney stayed in the car, windows rolled up, pretending she didn't know how this looked. My mom opened the door before they even rang the bell. She stood firm, not smiling, not moving. Just letting them know they weren't walking into familiar ground. Courtney's dad started talking before he hit the porch step. He said this had gone far enough. That marriage wasn't something you just walked out of. That real men face adversity with maturity. He said a lot of things, most of them recycled lines I'd heard before in different forms. But then he said something that stopped me cold. He said if I kept dragging this out, I'd be liable for emotional distress. Not just Courtney's, but theirs. That I had disrupted their household, their finances, their mental health. Like I hadn't been thrown out of my own house 3 days earlier with zero warning and a passive-aggressive text. Then Courtney's mom opened her folder and took out a paper. Some half-baked agreement she wanted me to sign. It outlined conditions for reconciliation. It said I'd resume paying the mortgage, agree to marriage counseling, and return access to all financial accounts. They'd even graciously waive the so-called $15,000 I owed if I cooperated. I didn't touch the paper. Instead, I told them something I'd been holding in since I left. That the marriage was already over. That I wasn't interested in starting over with someone who threw my life into bags and called it clarity. That I wasn't stupid, and I knew Courtney had been quietly meeting up with someone from her yoga studio for weeks. I hadn't mentioned that before, not because I didn't know, but because I wanted them to keep thinking they were 2 steps ahead. Courtney's dad turned red. Her mom started to say something, but my dad stepped up beside me. He told them they had 1 minute to get off the property. That we weren't interested in negotiations. That the law would handle what the law needed to handle. They didn't expect that. Courtney finally got out of the car. She walked up slow, like she was in a dream. She asked if I was really doing this. If I was really going to end the marriage, walk away from everything we built. I told her I wasn't walking. I was running. Towards something better. I told her she had until the end of the week to remove her name from the car title. That she had no access to the house anymore. That every legal step had already been filed. She said I'd regret it. Said I was being heartless. That I was destroying a family. I asked her if she wanted me to show her parents the text thread where she admitted to pawning the necklace. Because I had it backed up, just in case. My mom opened the door wider, and without another word, Courtney's parents turned around and walked off the porch. She stood there a second longer, like she didn't believe it was real. Then she followed them. They didn't say goodbye. No one did. That was the last time any of them set foot on that porch. After they left, the silence that followed was different. It wasn't the awkward kind. It wasn't tense or uncertain. It was clean. Like something had finally been cut off, and even though there was still a mess, it was no longer spreading. My dad said nothing, just handed me a beer and walked to the garage. My mom didn't say anything either. She just put chicken in the oven and asked if I wanted rice or potatoes with it. That was the most peace I'd felt in months. The next day, I took the trash bags still sitting in my trunk and dumped them into the big bin behind the gas station on Route 4. I didn't even open them. Nothing in there mattered anymore. Clothes, cables, a watch I'd forgotten she bought me. It was all soaked in the same energy. I wasn't taking any of it forward. Then I drove straight to the lawyer's office. We finalized the petition, added terms to restrict access to the property, and included a clause preventing Courtney from drawing on any assets acquired during the marriage unless she could provide direct evidence of contribution. She wouldn't be able to. She had never deposited a cent into the mortgage, never paid a bill on time, never even remembered the login to the banking app. I went through every document we had ever signed together. There was one that caught my eye, an old agreement from her parents about the wedding fund. They had called it a gift. In writing. A full paragraph about how they were blessed to support our union financially. I emailed a scanned copy to my lawyer with a note, just in case they try something. The day after that, I got a notification from the alarm system I'd left running at the house. Backdoor sensor triggered. It was 2:03 a.m. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. It was Courtney. She wasn't breaking in. She didn't try to force anything. She just stood there, barefoot, holding something in her hand. I couldn't tell what. Then she sat down on the back steps. Stayed there for 20 minutes. Didn't cry. Didn't talk. Just stared at the ground. After a while, she got up and left. I watched it twice. Not because I missed her, but because I wanted to understand what kind of person waits until everyone's gone to finally sit still. Maybe she thought showing up would rewrite things. Maybe she realized too late that it was real this time. I forwarded the clip to my lawyer, and then deleted it from my phone. I didn't need it. I already knew who she was. The next few days were full of lists. I applied to 3 hospitals out of state. Oregon, Colorado, Vermont. I contacted 2 travel nurse agencies. I made a spreadsheet of temporary contracts. Some came with housing. Most paid double what I made now. All of them felt like freedom. My parents didn't ask what my plan was. They just let me be. My mom offered to help pack if I needed it. My dad fixed the engine on my car even though I hadn't asked. I think they knew I wasn't coming back once I left. Courtney called me the night after I booked my flight. I answered because I wanted to see what she'd say now, after everything. She asked if I was really going through with it. If I was actually leaving town. I said yes. She asked where I was going. I didn't answer. Then she said, I thought you'd fight harder for me. For us. I paused. Not because I didn't have a response, but because it wasn't even anger I felt anymore. Just clarity. I said I did fight. For years. You just assumed I'd never stop. She went quiet. Then said, you're burning everything down? I said no. You already did. I'm just walking away from the ashes. She hung up. 5 minutes later, her brother texted me, you'll regret this. She's not the villain. I didn't answer him either. That was the night I packed. Just 2 bags. Essentials only. Everything else, I was ready to leave behind. I left before the sun came up. No goodbyes, no dramatic hugs, just a quiet breakfast and a thermos of black coffee my mom slipped into my hand. My dad stood by the door like he always did when someone was heading out for something big. He didn't say anything poetic. Just looked me in the eye and said, "Don't come back just to prove anything." That stuck with me the whole way. I drove west. I didn't have a playlist, just the hum of the tires and the occasional stretch of silence so thick it felt like I could peel it off the dashboard. My new job started in 4 days, a contract at a hospital in Central Oregon, population under 10,000, the kind of place where people still wave to each other from porches. I'd be on a rotation, housing included, no roots, no one asking where my wife was. Somewhere in Nebraska, the text started again. First from Courtney. "Are you really gone?" Then a second. "You just erased everything?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She already done all the erasing, bag by bag on the porch. A few hours later she got bolder. "You told my parents about the jewelry, didn't you?" Still silence from me. Then came the reach. The last play. "If you talk about that, I'll tell everyone about the nurse." You know which one. There it was. Her recycled bluff. A year ago, Courtney had started planting the idea that something was going on between me and a trauma nurse I worked closely with, Kayla. The truth? Kayla was 6 months pregnant and married to a cop. The only thing that happened between us was a 2-person fight to get a seizure patient off the floor when no one else was around. But Courtney saw her name in my texts once, me confirming a shift swap, and spun it into a whole narrative. That's how she worked. She didn't confront problems. She curated them. I didn't reply. But I saved the text. By the time I crossed into Oregon, I had a new number set up and a lawyer's confirmation in my inbox. The divorce had been filed, and Courtney hadn't contested. Not a single motion. Not even a delay. She probably thought staying quiet would keep her parents from finding out what she'd really been doing while pretending to be the wronged wife. She was wrong. That weekend I forwarded one single document to her father. No message, no explanation, just the receipt from the pawn shop with Courtney's signature on it, and a list of items she'd sold over the last 9 months, all traced back to their inventory reports from when I helped them catalog the estate items 2 Christmases ago. I hadn't meant to keep the receipts. I'd found them while packing. I never heard back from him. But I knew they received it. Because 2 days later, Courtney's number tried to call me 7 times in 1 hour. Then once more from a blocked number. I didn't pick up. The place I was living in was small. A studio above a pharmacy, with squeaky floors and a view of the back alley. But it was clean. Mine. I had 1 suitcase, a laptop, my old watch, and an air mattress. I made dinner on a hot plate, and watched a local news station that had a weatherman named Carl who messed up the forecast and laughed about it on air. It was quiet. Not empty. Not lonely. Just mine. My parents texted me every few days. No pressure. Just checking in. I told them I'd come back for Christmas. Maybe. If I felt like it. They didn't push. One night, about 2 weeks in, I walked past a mirror on the way to brush my teeth and didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked different, but because I looked calm. That's when it hit me. They thought they were throwing me out. That they were cutting me off from something. They didn't realize they set me free. It had been about a month since I left when the final call came. I was sitting in my car outside a diner after a long shift, watching snow blow sideways across the parking lot. Oregon was colder than I expected. But it felt right. I liked the silence, the way people asked how your day was and actually waited for the answer. No one knew my story here. I wasn't Brian and Courtney. I was just Brian. ER doctor. Lived above the pharmacy. Came in every Thursday for the steak sandwich. The call came from her dad. I stared at the name on the screen until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. I picked up on the 3rd try, not because I wanted to talk, but because I knew what this was. He didn't waste time. Didn't ask how I was or where I'd gone. Just said they had some things they needed to clear up. Said they wanted to avoid further damage. He said Courtney had been having a hard time and that her mother was distressed over the way things ended. That the situation with the jewelry had taken a toll on the family's image. And then he said it, He asked if there was any way I could keep things discreet, and in return, they'd be willing to work out a financial gesture for my silence. I told him no. No deals. No silence. No revision. He tried to get condescending then. Said that running away to some backwoods hospital didn't make me better than them. Said I was acting petty, childish. Said a real man would settle things face to face. I told him he should have thought about face to face the day his daughter dumped my life in garbage bags because her yoga instructor told her clutter was bad for chakras. I was done explaining myself to people who only listened when it suited them. Then, finally, he asked me if I was really going through with the divorce. Like it hadn't been finalized for over a week. I told him yes. And not just the paperwork. I was divorcing the whole damn illusion. His daughter. His family. The expectations, the manipulation, the subtle jabs disguised as advice. I was done. Before he could say another word, I said something I hadn't planned to. I said, tell Courtney I hope she finds someone else to control. Someone who confuses chaos for depth. Then I hung up. The next morning, I got an email from my lawyer. Everything was processed. Finalized. Legal. Irreversible. A new chapter. Since then, I haven't heard from any of them. No calls. No letters. Just nothing. I don't think I'll go back to the old house, even if I ever return to that town. Let it sit. Let it fall apart, or get sold to someone who'll paint over the memories. Doesn't matter to me. I've got a new apartment now, better than the one above the pharmacy. A dog I picked up from a shelter. A little mutt with too much energy and a crooked ear. I named him Chance. Seems fitting. Sometimes, when I walk him late at night and the streets are quiet, I still think about that morning. The bags on the porch. The text about mental clarity. And I smile. Because in the end, she was right. I found clarity too. Just not the way she expected. Mini update, 3 months later. 3 months out and I barely think about her now. Not in the angry way. Just like someone I used to know. Sometimes her name pops up when I'm filling out paperwork, marital status, prior address. And for a second, there's this weird pause, like the system still expects me to be tied to her. But that's the thing about a clean break. You realize how much of your life was built around someone else's comfort. I'm still in Oregon, and I extended the contract. Signed on for another 6 months. The hospital offered to help with relocation if I want to stay permanent. I haven't said yes yet. I like having the option to leave. Freedom tastes different when you've been owned before. Chance, the dog, wakes me up at 6 like clockwork. We walk down the street to a coffee stand where the barista knows my name and doesn't ask questions. I've started running again. Eating like a normal human. Sleeping through the night. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy. Just steady. The last text I got from her, Courtney, was 2 weeks ago. One line. Do you ever miss me? I didn't respond. I don't think she expected me to. And that silence? That was the real answer.